We go over the 5 biggest revelations from the newly unsealed probable cause affidavit in the University of Idaho murder.
Nah, you better make it 6. So if the statements in this article are validated, a good key portion of what's in this probable cause affidavit is absolutely a lie. And we also got to talk about how a gag order apparently doesn't apply to everybody. It's a lot to go through today, and we got a lot of questions to unpack, and this is going to be a big one. And if an open conversation is something you prefer, then this is the place for you. Welcome to The Point, so let's talk about it. So we've validated what an absolute bombshell of a story this is. What we have here, number 1, is an individual who should be under this gag order has been leaking things to Steve Goncalves, telling him crucial details of this case, which has in turn led Steve Goncalves to reach out to other witnesses, and it wasn't until the FBI told him to back off that he actually did. Now, I got to imagine this in some way, shape, or form greatly hinders Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial. It certainly throws a wrench into the trial, and I want to know from the judge what legal implications are going to be imposed on this juror who was leaking this information. Because we have all sat here and wondered, why was this gag order put in place? What made this case so unique and so special? It required everybody involved with it, everybody around it, to be tight-lipped. Well, now because of this statements, we may have our answer. The key witness in the probable cause affidavit was Dylan Mortensen. And I, for one, have been not doing any videos on either one of the roommates. I felt like they had been through enough. I felt like they had suffered enough, and I wasn't going to get on here and rail them for any type of negligence or incompetence. But if this story is true, we all have to ask ourselves, why did they lie in the probable cause affidavit? Now, we know initially from the reports that Moscow PD put out, the surviving roommates were asleep. They didn't see nothing. They didn't know nothing. And that initially made sense. I had thought it was odd that they slept right through this thing. I didn't see how that was possible. But looking back, it makes sense for them to make those initial statements because they hadn't caught the suspect. And they didn't want to put these roommates' lives in danger. And that's fine. That makes sense. But when the probable cause affidavit's released, Bryan Kohberger's detained like they got him. This is my guy. This is who we're charging. We know where he is. We're going to arrest him. And we're going to put in the probable cause affidavit everything that we know to be true. But here they are in the probable cause affidavit just making the statement, Dylan Mortensen saw Bryan Kohberger. She went into a frozen shock phase. And that was the reason why 911 wasn't called. And for everybody who called us conspiracy theorists and said we were reading too much into things and we don't understand what they would have went through, I need to hear from you now. I have been in shock before. I was in a car wreck. Now, I don't know if they're different, but when I was going into shock, I certainly wasn't coherent. I definitely couldn't call or text anybody, much less read a message. But here she was, supposed to be in shock. The whole reason she couldn't call 911. But we have it now in this story that not only was she awake through the whole incident, she was apparently coherent enough to text her roommate. She apparently heard the whole thing, and Bethany Funk heard the whole thing. So what is the logical reason here for that information to not be put in the probable cause affidavit? So okay, if you want to say the argument is that they didn't want the roommates to become targeted by internet sleuths, social media, the mainstream media, we're going to fudge this a little bit. I mean, you probably could have came up with a better alternative story than just went into shock and was in shock for a total of 8 hours. I mean, you got to do a little better than that if that was the reason. But if they were awake and what was said in that article is true, there needs to be a valid reason issued as to why they would not contact 911. Why they wouldn't call the authorities when they had apparently heard every incident from room to room. Now, I understand being scared. I understand they locked their door. And okay, they might have texted each other to make sure one of them was okay. But immediately following that, wouldn't you want to contact authorities and let them know somebody was in your home and harming your roommates? It makes no sense to me why they would have not contacted authorities. Nor does it make sense to me now why it wouldn't be put in the probable cause affidavit. Now, I had said from the beginning, a whole lot of this stuff within the probable cause affidavit just wasn't lining up. Something wasn't sitting right. And this is just another stone in a story to validate my initial suspicions. And I had also wondered why in that 48-hour story, Steve Goncalves would sit there on camera and say he's open to Bryan Kohberger not doing this. And they have been strong advocates for cameras in the courtroom. They have made plenty of statements about how this investigation was handled very quietly and very secretively, and they have been very strong advocates for an open trial. Now we know. Apparently this whole time, according to this article, the Goncalves family knew portions of this probable cause affidavit were false. And now we, as the people who have been invested in this to understand what happened, discover what happened, and the actual person who did it, we need to know why this particular information wasn't put in the affidavit. There is no logical reason. And people have gotten on here and raised questions and speculation and been crucified to a degree. And I want to hear from everybody who took the probable cause affidavit as it was, swore up and down it was true. I need to hear from y'all now. Do you believe what is said in this article? Do you think there's validity to it? Because it seems to me the father of one of the victims, one of the most outspoken advocates for justice, would not sit there and hinder the investigation into a trial where a suspect is being charged for the passing of his own child. Why would Steve do that? Why would the Goncalves family get on camera and talk to the press and hurt their own investigation, their own search for justice? So once again, like I said in that previous video, somebody is being fishy here. It's either the Goncalves family, Airmail, or Moscow Police Department. It's one of the three. There's no valid reason for this stuff to not be in the probable cause affidavit. And we now need to know, if it is true, what was the legitimate reason authorities weren't called. Because if you're trying to do an investigation and you're trying to eliminate doubt and you're trying to keep, let's say, the internet sleuths from drumming up conspiracies, if what's true, y'all are creating this circus. Y'all are creating this mess. At the end of the day, we have to take all this with a grain of salt. We don't want to take any anonymous source or anybody's unofficial word as scripture. But I can't make sense of why the Goncalves family would do something to hinder a trial that is supposed to bring justice to their daughter. So I'm inclined to initially believe there is some validity here. And Moscow Police Department is going to have to answer this question at some point. This is going to be raised during the trial. There is no legitimate reason to not have this information in the probable cause affidavit. You've already detained Bryan Kohberger. The roommates are safe. So what were they doing during that 8-hour period? That is the question. Now, we've had theories about the ties to substance problems. I've raised theories that it sounds to me like somebody was cleaning the room. And I don't want to say that those particular theories are 100% true, but it lends some credence to them. They were awake, they were alert, they both heard everything. And the public deserves answers. Y'all deserve answers. We all just want the truth. We all just want justice for those 4 victims, because they didn't deserve what they went through. And if Moscow Police Department has been doing some things that is a little shady, trying to be sneaky, I mean, hey, look, you can overplay your hand in poker. And if what is said is true, then that is exactly what y'all did. The public will want to know why 2 individuals who were clearly not in shock because they were communicating didn't call authorities sooner, That is an absolute 100% valid question, and I can't answer or find a logical reason to it, unless there is something else going on behind the scenes, and I don't want to speculate on it. But this is a crazy situation. It makes a weird story even weirder, and the implications of this moving forward for these hearings and for this trial have yet to be determined, but I can't imagine this is going to go over well with Judge. We need to figure out who this juror is, and they need to be held accountable if this is something they can be held accountable for. But I'm not going to take up a whole lot of your time. It's a very weird situation, and I'm curious to hear what you think about it. Mostly those of y'all who have said we were wrong for questioning the probable cause affidavit. Y'all got an open forum here. I'm not going to jump on you for anything you say. Just be respectful about it. But I'm very curious to hear your thoughts now more than ever. And everybody else, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here. Y'all stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next one.